In terms of why study the Master of Speech Pathology at our university, we are the #1 university in Australia, and that pretty much comes out consistently in the QS World rankings, and number 20 in the world for medical and health. And that's from the Times Higher Education World University Rankings. But more than that, you get to be based in what, objectively is the best city in Australia. So we're really centrally located in Melbourne. And I'm sure our students will speak to the experience of actually being immersed in the city culture. I'm not sure if climate is the #1 reason to visit Melbourne specifically, but look, we do have a good 6 months of the year where it is pretty nice and sunny. Our course is really unique in that we really see the importance of strong industry links. So as Joyce has already mentioned, a big part of our program is practical. Students are participating in work integrated learning in real authentic clinical settings, and we have very strong partnerships in that area that we foster through direct engagement and also supporting those clinical placement providers in research as well. And that's also one way that we ensure that what we're teaching is at the forefront of research and is evidence-based. Joyce has already mentioned that we have very strong ties to the Melbourne Speech Pathology Clinic. They're located on site at the university, and we partner with them to provide our students experiences across a range of settings that are a range of intervention settings that are quite unique really in speech pathology practice. As an example, you can see there's an article there on the screen. We recently have just set up a gender affirming voice clinic, and currently we're the only clinic of that nature running nationally. We also have an instrumental swallowing assessment clinic in a university clinic. Again, we are one of the only universities who can provide that experience for students. Another clinic we've just set up in partnership with Melbourne Teaching Health Clinics is a childhood apraxia of speech clinic and a paediatric feeding clinic. So we're really proud of those strong industry and research links. Thanks, Joyce. This is what our course looks like, and Joyce has already talked a little bit about the course structure, and all of this is available online as well. So you can see that our program runs over 2 years, and those years are divided into semesters, so a total of 4 semesters. At the beginning of the course, your first semester, we recognise that everyone is coming into the program with a different skill set and different knowledge base behind them. We see that diversity as a real strength in our program. So we very much focus on that first semester on the foundational knowledge that you require to be a speech pathologist, the foundational knowledge that you'll then build on as you acquire more practical skills. So anatomy and physiology, linguistics and speech pathology, and communication across the lifespan are really those foundational subjects. Communication across the lifespan specifically, as the name suggests, will teach you about what typical development might look like in communication and also in feeding as well. What we have highlighted on this screen in light blue are our clinical readiness and clinical practical subjects. So clinical processes A is that first clinical readiness subject. That's it's a flipped classroom model. So the students come in and do very practical workshop-based activities where we teach them the foundations of clinical practice. So some of the topics that are covered there are taking a case history, building rapport with your client, learning about different intervention settings. Moving into semester 2, we get more into our pretty theoretical speech pathology subjects. We teach you all about domains of communication, speech, language. We also cover fluency in this semester as well, and also swallowing and voice. And clinical processes B is a subject that flows on from clinical processes A, but more with an intervention focus. So we support students to learn how to do things like plan for a session, for example, respond to client behaviours, act on contingencies within a session. Speech pathology practice 1 is our first clinical placement subject. Sorry, I will speed up. So that's your first placement. We send you out into a clinic for 9 days just to get a flavour, a taste of speech pathology practice and complete your first placement. Between year 1 and year 2, our students do go out and do an 18-day clinical placement. That could be in any intervention setting with any population group. The first semester of year 2, we have more consolidating practice subjects, integrated speech pathology practices where we start to introduce a bit of complexity to these cases with students. And communication and swallowing advanced, we talk about different population groups where there may be elements of complexity that require some further consideration. So working with people with progressive neurological diseases, for example, or dementia. Speech Pathology Practice 2, there are 2 placements embedded there. So one 18-day placement that is typically completed in the summer period between semesters 2 and 3, and another 18-day placement throughout semester time. And we're well placed really, and we're very proud to be able to offer our students an adult placement and a paediatric placement in those blocks. Independent studies in speech pathology, all of our students in the final year do a year-long subject where they work alongside a supervisor and potentially some peers to complete a research project related to our field. And the final semester, we get into some more nitty-gritty. You know, at that stage, our students are looking to transition into the workforce, so we have a strong emphasis on workplace readiness. Complex case models is a small group tutorial subject where students work through different clinical cases. And speech pathology in the community is more about working with diverse population settings with a strong First Nations focus as well. And Speech Pathology Practice 3, you complete 2 20-day placements, again, one in paediatric practice and one in adult practice. Thanks, Joyce. In terms of our entry requirements, this has been touched on a little bit already, of course, but we do recommend, or we encourage students who have completed a related undergraduate degree to enter into the program. So there are some examples on the screen there. I will say, though, that our students come to us from all different walks of life. So even if your exact undergraduate degree is not listed there, we still very much encourage you to apply. You must meet the English language requirement, and this can be achieved in a number of ways, including recognised previous study taught and assessed entirely in English or an approved English language test. And we do consider the weighted average mark, or your WAM, in terms of your application. We certainly encourage students with a WAM of above 65 to apply, and we then shortlist applicants. There is an additional requirement too in terms of entry into the program, which is completion of the CASPA situational judgment test as well.